Welcome to the Core Mission Podcast. In this episode, we're excited to share a testimony of a life transformed by Jesus. Join host Rebecca McNeely as she interviews Jane from Encounter Church, whose journey will inspire others to get to know Jesus. As we highlight Alpha as a key resource for outreach and evangelism, we invite you to listen to this impactful story. If you're interested in starting Alpha at your core, please reach out to us. We're here to help. A special thank you to Jane for her courage and willingness to share her story. This is the Core Mission Podcast.
So I'm here with Jane, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I've heard some wonderful things, but I was just saying to Jane, I don't know anything about your story. This is the first time I'm hearing it, which is wonderful. And Jane attends Encounter, the church we're at. She also works for Encounter. She's been working here for about a year and attending it for about 2 years.
That's right.
So why don't you just launch in and just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to know Encounter, about who you are before you started coming to Encounter. Yeah, just share a little bit.
So I'm going to be 65 next month, and my whole childhood was not a traditional childhood. We didn't practice religion, or we didn't go to church. In fact, my father didn't believe in God at all, so for any of us to believe in God would have probably infuriated him even more.
Wow.
I remember my mom trying when I was about 7 or 8 years old to go to the Faith Church down at the corner of Summit and Windsor Street, when it was a full-blown Pentecostal church back then. And she seemed to get something from it, so she tried to introduce us to the Faith Church. And when my dad found out that we were all going to church together, like, he lost his ever-loving marbles. Like, it just wasn't in the cards for us. So I did not grow up with religion. I didn't grow up believing in God at all. I come from a very tumultuous childhood. There were many abuses from many people over the years. However, the good side of that was, as I grew older, I began to question, where is my God? Where is the God I hear about, right? The God that can save me from where I am. And I knew he had to be close because I survived everything that I'd gone through growing up. So I grew up, and when I turned 17, I went to Ontario on my own. I stayed there until 2001, where I had my children, raised my children. I did not baptize my children, primarily because I wanted them to be able to freely choose where they felt they needed to go spiritually. I didn't want to pre-ordain them or force them in a direction that they might not be comfortable with as adults. So I did not baptize my children, which wouldn't have made my dad happy anyway. And we didn't go to church the whole time. Again, I didn't know what church was. The few times that I'd been in church, it was very almost medicinal for me. It was almost like a hospital. It was, the big ornate churches with the pews and the songbooks in front of you, and you had to kneel on the benches. Very cold and very impersonal. And I didn't ever feel like I belonged. So even as a small child, the big church wasn't where I felt comfortable at all. And then in 2000, and so I'm going to fast forward, no church experience, really didn't believe in God, but knew there had to be a God because I had survived everything that I had survived. So what did that mean to me? And then 2 years ago, unfortunately, I had a mental breakdown. And it forced me to reach out.
Okay.
So I reached out to, at first I thought I was reaching out to the Mental Health Distress Center, who gave me a phone number. And I called the phone number and I spoke with Brent. We tried back and forth a couple of times to set an appointment. I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know who I was meeting. I just thought I was getting immediate mental health counseling to get me to the next day is how I felt.
Just to survive.
I was broken. I still am broken, but I'm a work in progress.
Really?
So I came in and I met with Brent and Melissa, and we talked for, oh my goodness, must have been close to 3 hours.
Wow.
And I just poured it all out. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't have any place to go. I didn't have friends. My 20-year relationship was breaking down. I didn't have a relationship with my children. And I felt so alone and so empty. And not even worthy to be in the pastor's room. Like, I really had such a very low sense of self. Then he invited me to attend. He said, no pressure. Just no pressure, come. He said, this is our humble beginnings, and just come and try it out. And if it works for you, we would welcome you in. So I came the first Sunday, and I remember sitting in front of Brent, listening to him preach, and the tears were just flowing. Wow. And I have been coming every Sunday since that Sunday. I can't wait to get here in the morning. I look forward to Sundays.
Wow. I can only imagine, just the feeling of like being so low and so desperate for help and for connection, probably if you were feeling alienated from your children and your relationship was breaking down.
And no friends, right? I moved. My parents moved us every couple of years. We weren't a naval family. We weren't a forces family. But just about when people started to catch on to what was going on, I mean, back then, the man was the king of his castle. So whatever went on behind closed doors was allowed to stay behind closed doors. So every couple of years, they would move us. So I never got the opportunity to form attachments. I don't know who I went to school with. I don't know who I went to high school with.
So painful.
I don't... I couldn't tell you names of people that I ever went to school with. And I know that I did because there are yearbooks with my signature in it. No pictures, but me signing other kids' yearbooks. So I know I was there.
But it's like, how do you form your sense of self and identity if there's no one around you to like validate and affirm the good in you and what's unique about you?
Yeah, there was none of that. There was none of that.
So then what was different for you? I mean, you were in this place of desperation where you just needed to feel connected and find people. But what was different about Alpha, or what did you experience in Alpha?
Oh my goodness. So on my personal journey to become the best person for myself that I could be, not necessarily for the world because I'm a very good giver. I'm a nurturer by nature. That's what I like to do. I take care of people.
I can see that.
But in doing all of that, I neglected to take care of myself.
Yeah.
So part of my journey was to do whatever I needed to do to build myself up spiritually and to give me the confidence to feel what everybody saw. People saw me, but I didn't see me.
Yeah.
So Alpha was one of the stepping stones. I'm hungry. I'm hungry for information. I'm hungry to get closer to God. I was hungry. So going to Alpha was an eye-opener for me because during one of the sermons from Pastor Brent, he alluded to the series The Chosen.
Yeah.
And after one of the Alpha nights, I went home and I watched season 1, 2, and 3 back to back.
Wow.
And I came to the next Alpha group, and the subject matter that night tied into my meeting, what I believed was my meeting Jesus for the first time.
Wow.
Because The Chosen made him human to me.
Real. He was there.
Look, if I could have lived 2,000 years ago, there's not a doubt in my mind that I would not be sitting at his table hanging on his every word.
Yeah. Wow.
That series made Alpha easier to understand because now I had a person and his apostles and their humble beginnings.
His relationship with them, the back
Yes,
and forth.
and I knew that I wanted those kinds of relationships. So
Yeah.
now, what work did I need to do to have those kinds of relationships? And Alpha was probably, I think, one of the first courses I took. And Alpha for me was the place I needed to be to ask those hard questions. I was expected to trust and have blind faith. And that is still difficult for me given
Yeah.
my history.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So through Alpha, I learned a little bit more grace. I learned a little bit more of the faith in myself to then believe in the grace of God. So once I started to feel a little bit better, I started forming relationships at the church. I got involved almost immediately. I volunteered wherever I could. I started up the TOP program for the babies on Sunday morning. I wanted to now just bury myself in the church. I just wanted to learn whatever I could, be useful wherever I could be, so that nurturing side of me was now being nurtured back. And I have to say that was the biggest gift from everything else I've ever been through, is the reception, the acceptance of my skill set, my personality, my hunger to learn about God, have those open conversations with people, and be real. Alpha just lets you be real.
Honest.
You can't, there's no place to hide.
Oh, wow. This is just my own selfish question, because, like, hearing you talk, you're not just talking about Alpha and the church. You're talking about encountering the person of Jesus. Like, that's what's setting this time in your life apart. Would you say, like, can you share a little bit more about what that was like? Like, I grew up in the church. I've only ever known, that's not to say I haven't encountered Jesus myself, but I've only ever known a space that's talking about God. So what was it like for you to have this knowing in the back of your mind that there's God, there's a God out there, I think so, I need it, but I've been hurt and my trust has been broken, and then to come to encounter the person of Jesus? What did that feel like? What was that experience like?
One of the lines that sticks out most in my mind is, what would Jesus do? So going forward from Alpha, I decided to make a conscious choice about what would Jesus do? And that then I would want to do in his likeness. I knew I could never, I'd never part the sea and I'd never walk on water, but I could make people's hearts feel better. For me, it is still a journey. I still have trust issues.
Of course.
I still look for my faith. I have started gathering affirmations that I have framed all over my house, so that no matter where I go in my house, there's something positive for me to read. I am working on building my faith. My trust, who I trust most right now would be Brent and Melissa.
Yeah.
They will never steer me wrong.
No.
So as long as they are willing to continue to nurture my desire to be closer to Jesus, my faith, I know in time, will grow. I'm a brand new Christian. I've been going to church only for maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm brand new and I want to learn more, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting to feel my chest open, and that hasn't happened yet.
It's a process, and this
Yes.
is so good. I'm so glad you're honest, that you're not like, I met Jesus and everything's perfect.
No, it's not.
That's not real.
It's not my life.
It's not how other people have experienced God either. So, was there a moment for you during Alpha where you were like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow Jesus? Or was it quite gradual?
By the end of I think it was a 8-week course. By the end of the 8 weeks, there was no doubt in my mind that I had found where I needed to be. No doubt in my mind. I'm still, I'm rough around the edges, and I kind of say it how it is. And
We need that.
I'm honest to a fault. But in being honest to a fault, it opens up conversations with other people.
Yes.
And when I can see the love that they have for Jesus and how it has worked, I don't want to say miracles, but how it has worked, minor miracles in people's lives. I mean, I'm waiting, as the new Christian, I'm kind of waiting for this thunderbolt to come down and give me the almighty miracle. But I've learned to listen a little bit. And very recently, God has worked a minor miracle in my favor. And I thank him from the bottom of my heart for that. So gradually, I'm through my therapy and through the church, I am slowing down and taking the time to listen. He's there. I just don't give myself the time to stop and listen.
It's hard. It's hard to take that time to listen.
So I'm in training right now. I meditate.
Yeah.
I read my Lectio 365
I love
morning
that.
and night.
I do that too.
Yeah. So I am trying. I'm burying myself in scripture. I'm burying myself in conversation. I want to know more. I want to feel more.
Have you ever felt the hunger, like hearing you talk, like you're hungry, you want more, you can't get enough? Have you felt that for things before? That's like, this is a unique.
No, this is unique. I've said to Brent very recently, I just feel like there's more that I could be doing. And it's unfortunate because I'm on the downside of my lifespan now, right?
You've got lots of time still.
But I feel like I said to him jokingly, send me to Botswana land. Let me minister to the children. I look at the kids in school and how they should be taught now more than ever. Mindfulness, breathing techniques.
Totally.
Right? Stress management and I feel like developing a program and going to the school board and saying, I can do this.
And I love how you're integrating your faith in Jesus, like the person of Jesus, with also just good practices, like healthy practices.
But I think he's leading me in that direction.
That's wonderful.
I think that's what he has something in store for me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I just know I need to be doing more of something.
The not knowing is hard, but the fact that you're just opening yourself up, that's another question I would have for you is how has your life changed since you have opened yourself up to the person of Jesus and since you've started coming consistently to church?
The changes are pretty substantial. I have lost family members over it, and that's because we are of the same family, right? Yeah. We all got the same treatment. They've decided to walk in one direction. I've decided to walk off into another direction. So I have lost family members. I've had to put up boundaries that I never had before to protect my sensitivities. And then finding the friend base and the social base and the acceptance base at church has changed my whole opinion about this church in particular, has changed my opinion about God and the church and the people of the church and what they do. Yeah. I used to believe that God was greedy, that he just wanted us for our money.
Wow.
Right? That's not the truth.
It's not.
He wants us to love ourselves like we love other people. Therein lies my challenge, right? I love you and I will take care of you, but how do I love myself?
That's so interesting. People typically struggle the other way around, and it's so interesting to hear you talk in this way because it's because in the Bible it talks about loving others as you love yourself. But how can you love others if you don't? It's
a question I ask myself every day.
Fully first have the understanding of how God sees us. I understand that. Like that's such a deeply human struggle.
And that's why I wait for this chest to open. It's a work in progress. I want to be able to take a breath and just know. And I don't know yet.
And I think it is a work in process. Like I don't think that I'm similar to you in that I'll often wait for this like epiphany moment. Like being struck by lightning. Like God did it, it's done, he fixed me, we're good to go. On to the next. But I wonder sometimes if God works in us progressively because he just wants to be near us. He just wants to be also in relationship that's ongoing and see what it's like for us to depend fully on him for the change.
Yeah, I buy into that because I don't think my journey is ever going to end,
No.
right? I don't think I'm ever going to have the answers that I seek
Yeah.
and be done.
No.
I think whatever he has in store for me from this moment on will take me right up until I meet him in heaven. And I, there's a part of me that says, man, what a shame that I have to die to meet him.
Wow.
So I'm working toward meeting him before
Oh, that's
I
beautiful.
die.
Yeah, I believe you can.
That's my journey.
I think it feels and looks different from person to person because it's a deeply personal relationship that Jesus has to each of us.
Well, I would tell anybody, just, don't give up. I refuse to
Yeah.
give up. I've seen minor things happen in my life that encourage me.
Yeah, keep you going.
Yes. Yeah, things that were broken in my personal life, my family life. They're beginning to mend over time, and I can
Wow.
see baby steps, but I know that's God working,
Absolutely.
or that's God working through me. The other big thing I noticed too is that people around me haven't changed. They're the same.
You're the one who
I'm the one who's made
That's
the changes,
powerful,
right?
yeah.
And I recognize that. I just came back from vacation. I was in Jamaica for a week, and I went with people that I have put boundaries around, but I had promised that I would go, and I also knew that I wasn't going alone. They were going by themselves. I was walking with God.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
So I knew no matter what they were going to throw at me during my vacation,
Yeah.
that I could escape and be with God for a moment. And I did. I took those moments. If things got a little crazy for me, I just excused myself and I went and journaled, or I filled out my gratitude journal, or I just walked the beach of Jamaica thanking God for the sunset.
Wow. And just the way you talk, it's so clear that God is refuge for you. He is safety. He is comfort.
I'm banking on him.
Oh, I love that.
I'm banking on him.
And we all should, but because of this newness in your life, that it's still fresh, you talk about it with such earnestness. Like it's so real. And I hope you know how profoundly encouraging that is to hear your story and see the hope that you have just because you met Jesus. Like that, Jane, that is incredible.
He's always been there. I just didn't see him. I didn't feel him. I didn't hear him.
Wow.
And now I'm opening up to him.
Oh, that's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. What would you say to, 30-year-old Jane or 20-year-old Jane, or even not just to yourself, but to somebody else who's listening to this, who's heard this, and is feeling the desperation that you described, who hasn't yet encountered Jesus? Where would you point them? What would you say to them?
I think I have tried to reach out to friends of mine online who I know are suffering from addictions. And they're really struggling, and they're up and down and back and forth. And I keep sending them little prayers, and they say things like, I don't believe in God anymore. He's let me down. And I just write back and say, you know what? I know that he feels like he's let you down because I felt like he let me down my whole life. But don't give up.
Yeah.
Go and talk to any, I don't care what denomination it is, go and talk to any church priest, any church pastor, any church counselor. Get out of bed and I know it's hard because there were mornings where I couldn't even get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
But when you know that there is something good going to come out of that effort, it pushes you to walk out the door. And that's all I can, just push yourself that one step further. Give yourself the opportunity to go and talk to somebody that will introduce you to freedom, right? I have learned to forgive, and I have forgiven all of them who ever had a part in my upbringing. And it freed me,
Yeah.
right? It does. It frees you.
Yeah.
So don't give up. Don't give in. I'm sad that it took me this many years to get where I am, but I'm grateful I'm finally here.
Yeah. The way you talk about this is it's so honest to, I think, the experience of countless other people who feel lost and who feel trapped by the hurt that's been put on them. And you're offering in such a simple way an invitation, which is basically what happened to you. And have you found that the people you did Alpha with, the people here at Encounter, have continued to be your support
Oh my
in your
goodness.
community?
So there was a young fella in Alpha that I flirted incessantly with. I'm old enough to be his grandmother. But he was so raw in his addiction that coming to Alpha was one of his ways to help beat his own addiction.
Wow.
And he and I forged such a friendship that now when Officer Hale comes to the church, I often ask how he's doing in particular. Because towards the end of Alpha, a light switch went off in him and you could see it.
Yeah.
It was tangible.
It's just a change, a complete
So I
change.
I tell people it's not going to happen overnight. I'm still I'm going to be on this journey for the rest of my life, and all I can do is take one little tidbit at a time as it's given to me.
Yeah.
And to anybody else, just allow yourself to take one tidbit at a time from a best friend, a clergyman. Talk to anybody. Just don't hold it in. Because that just about killed me. Keeping secrets.
Oh, it just eats you up. And Alpha really is a good place. It's a safe place.
It was cathartic in that real life incidences through the videos allowed you to identify. Again, you realize you're not alone.
Yeah, you're not.
They used other countries as examples, and it's an epidemic everywhere that people don't believe.
Yeah.
And Alpha shows you how to believe, how to read the Bible. Something as simple as how do you read a scripture,
Yeah.
right? So I have this Bible 911 photo that sits on my wall. And depending on the mood I'm in for any given day, I may have to rely on my Bible 911 and go to a passage that'll deal directly with grief or directly with...
Yeah. But there are answers available. You
just have to ask the question.
And you wouldn't know how to get them if there wasn't like a simple access point to learn. Like they're all there, but
Online. For those of you who are infirm and can't get out, use your phones, use your computers,
Wow, yeah.
go online, ask the question, go to Google, ask the question, does God exist? And start from there.
Yeah.
And just start from there.
Just one baby step at a
Yes.
time. But I'm sure though that you would even say you're right that is a first step, but that the relationships were so important.
Still have them. So the facilitators, unfortunately, one of the facilitators moved on. The other gentleman continues to come, and he and I pray together all the time.
That's so cool.
He gave me a healing prayer and a bottle of oil, and if I'm out in public and I see something that warrants a prayer, I have come out of my shell enough
that you can do that.
that I can stand there now
That's
and
cool.
pray with somebody.
Oh wow.
And I've never ever been able to do that before.
It's scary.
It is. It's not anymore.
Oh, that's so cool. That you're like truly, you've been changed by this experience and by these people and by this.
And the more I practice it, the more real for me it's becoming to feel, right?
Practice is so key to this.
So as long as I practice my faith, I read my Bible, I have favorite songs. I go to every course that's here.
Yeah, you're being trained right now in Alpha.
I would, yes. I'm looking forward to running my own Alpha group.
Oh, Jane, you're going to be fantastic. Like, I can already see the type of facilitator you'll be. So, okay, just to wrap up, tell me any final thoughts for someone who's maybe apprehensive to invite someone to Alpha or apprehensive to go to Alpha, or even a church that's like, I don't know if we should run it. Any final words of wisdom?
So I have been taking the Sanctuary course this past 8 weeks. And I am proud that our church has decided that the mental health status is something that the church can deal with.
Yeah.
So I would say to anybody who's suffering any malady, whether it's depression, maybe you were religious once, maybe you did believe in God once, maybe you did go to church every Sunday and something happened and you've lost your faith in God. An Alpha course, if you walk in the door and sit quietly, even through the first session, because you're not sure that that's where you need to be, I think after your first initial introduction to Alpha, you will realize that you can find God again, that your misplaced distrust came from misinformation. So now you're getting the facts from Alpha.
Yeah, the truth.
You're sitting amongst people that you know are there for exactly the same reason, to find something. You're searching for something. You need to heal something. Alpha's a good place to start.
Yeah, it's just a start. You don't have to know
Nope,
what the
nothing.
end is going to be.
You don't even have to know God.
Yeah.
Alpha will introduce you to it all in the first session, and then the rest is just valuable information.
Wow. I love that. That's fantastic. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for sharing so honestly, for not holding things back, and for inviting people to experience what you have so clearly been changed by.
Thank you.